Hi everyone, and welcome to the Numerology and the Astrology for July 23rd, 2020. If you add all those numbers together, you get the number 16. If you add the 1 and the 6 together, you get the number 7. The number 7 is one of my favorite numbers, but in my numerological spread I have 2 7s, and so my joke always about myself is that I'm a double 7. So I love a plan, I love a strategy, I love a structure, I love organizing things, and when I have a plan or strategy or structure, I feel safer, I feel more content, I feel more aligned. And so, my joke again about myself is that, I don't really like surprises that much. I like to have something well thought through and planned so that I kind of know what to expect and I'm sort of energetically prepared for that. And so the 7 likes that practical, down to earth application of situations so that you can repeat a success again and again. Now, the number 7 in yogic numerology is actually associated with the soothsayers and the shaman who would throw the bones or the coca leaves, that they would see a pattern in how the bones laid out, or a pattern in the leaves, or in my case, a pattern in the cards, or a pattern in numerology, or a pattern in poems. And so patterns and how those patterns work together is of great fascination to people who have 7s in their numerology. And when you're in a 7-day, you might notice that there starts to be this subliminal pattern, this pattern that is an undercurrent that is breathing life into things. So Deepak Chopra said, once you get past the cells and the protons, neutrons, and electrons, and quarks, and all these little things, there's a whole bunch of nothing. And so what is that nothing? I think that nothing is the glue that actually holds life together. And I think that nothing is intention. I think that we look the way we look, and we've chosen the bodies we've chosen because of a configuration of our energy field and what we wanted to learn in this lifetime, where we wanted our struggles to be. And so our intention kind of put this together a certain way. And the 7 vibration is always about trying to understand the deeper meanings of those patterns and be able to move with the pattern rather than be in resistance to it and say, well, why does that keep happening to me in this moment? And I'm like, well, because there's a pattern, and how are you contributing to that pattern? So the number 7 is, needless to say, one of my favorite numbers. And it's all about understanding the strategies that explain the mysteries of the world. And I find that understanding and researching the subtle patterns of energy that surround us is a very good way to seek wisdom. There is always more to know, and the willingness to understand the energy that underlies everything is a good way to spend your time. Within all life is an energy that is the glue that holds that life into a particular configuration that is manifesting. That energy is an intention and a desire to understand life from a particular perspective. All life is a form of configured energy. It has a rhythm, a sound associated with it. It has an agenda and a place that it intends to experience life a certain way. When was the last time you stepped out of your way of experiencing life and tried on another perspective? I find it very helpful to step past our overfixation and personal self-identification. Sometimes the insight of another perspective is insightful. It can deepen your understanding of the world and open your eyes to ways of perceiving things that helps you navigate what is stressing you at the moment. My favorite one to look at is to look at me from the perspective of my outdoor stray tabby cat that I feed every morning. She is old, weathered, wise, tough, cautious, leery, and yet she does appreciate my efforts to feed her, but she is not warm and fuzzy. She never purrs. She never lets me touch or pet her, even with those clearly defined boundaries that she requires. We have what I consider a friendship. We see each other regularly. We look forward to that morning connection, and we both get something out of it. We are in relationship. on her terms, of course. It got me to look at what I previously defined as a relationship, and I noticed how limited my old perspective was. Looking out through her eyes, I see my world differently. I see her world. I feel into her mindset, and I feel into her struggle for life and how she is her own success story. I respect her, or her efforts, her constant, endless struggles, and I also feel how I have taken some of that struggle away from her and given her a small bit of ease in a very tough world. Today, feel past your own reality. Feel into the experiences of others. Step outside of what you believe is your reality and into the perspective of another. It is extremely helpful to find compassion and to act from a place of kindness rather than irritation. Okay, the astrology for today. The moon continues in Virgo, and you will feel that drive to get organized and get that much bigger project done. Wear your mask and goggles. It's going to get dusty and sweaty, but think of how great you are going to feel later when this thing has been hanging over your head for so long is finally handled. A new chapter is getting ready to start, and often you have to clean up the past in order to have space for your future. Adapt and be helpful to others. Be sharp and notice things that others have not noticed. That it will help you move towards a new approach. Mercury and Uranus are doing their Texas two-step dance, and it is good to embrace what is and recognize that the methods of others are just as good as your ideas. That helps you realize that certain things don't really matter, and some stresses are not even necessary. There is a Venus-Pluto quintile making you look at the money patterns and your relationship to that money and how it either positively impacts your world or causes stress. Mercury and Ceres are moving towards a trine, so take some time to nurture others and nurture others with your kind heart and support each other with words. So you would be amazed at how much believing in others gives them the incentive to make some big changes. Often we just need someone to believe in us in order to take that risk. Just remember, if somebody does take the time to help you in some way, don't get attached and don't hold expectations that that will continue in the future. There have been many people in my life that they gave me one unbelievable piece of information and then disappeared from my life forever. But from that point, I was forever changed. Okay. I did not have a quote for today because my husband and I decided that we were going to go down and get the COVID-free testing before our government stops doing free testing. Even though we're not sick and we don't have any exposure, we thought, well, you know, just to keep people relaxed and know that we're safe, we're going to go get a COVID test. So this morning we got up, and at 7:30 in the morning we went running out to a place an hour away from where we are because they had the testing there. And yeah, it was fine. It was not terribly unpleasant. I think some people think it's really unpleasant, but I'm like, you know, it was okay. So, but there's no problem. I'm not sick. I don't have any issues. That's just, I'm covering bases just before, in August 1st, they're threatening to not do any free testing anymore. So I thought, well, let's go ahead and get this done while we can. All right. My blog for today. I thought I would do a story from my ballet days about kindness in the midst of competition. So ballet companies are an incredibly highly competitive environment. And so people say ballerinas are, oh, they're so beautiful and they're so thin and they're so feminine. And I start chuckling because I go, you don't know many ballerinas, do you? Because the ballerinas that I know are going to kick your ass. I mean, they are incredibly competitive. They're incredibly forceful. They are determined. They have a very strong direction. They know exactly what they want. They will practice endlessly. They have incredible self-control. They have a lot of mental self-control, emotional self-control. And while There are many stresses in a ballet company that will threaten that over and over and again. I find that in general, all ballet dancers, I don't care if they're a quarter ballet dancer to a principal ballet dancer, have a lot more determination and self-control than other people. I learned a long time ago that talent does not necessarily make success, but what makes success is enough talent and a hell of a lot of determination. And because of those lessons, I have learned so many things that became critical as I continued on in my life, because you can't be the best at everything all the time. It's just completely impossible. You cannot possibly know everything that's out there in the world. People are becoming more and more specialized because it's just so much information to be able to absorb. Our brains, end up being tunnel vision focused in certain areas. And so, that determination to kind of keep going is what gives you the expertise down the road. So in ballet, like I said, there's a tremendous amount of competition. I learned very early on when I was like 14 that comparing myself to other dancers was making me miserable. There's always somebody who's prettier, better turns, better jumps, better feet, cuter nose, perkier, shorter, less gangly. There's always somebody who is so much better than you that you have to learn to stand in your authenticity and just be your best. And so you have to learn to compete with yourself. And dancers that learn that are really happy and they're really generous. And I think that's true of anything. I mean, I look at Simone Biles, here's this generous person. I mean, she's got so much skill and talent, but she's not competing with anybody. She's competing with herself. There is nobody as good as her. So she competes with herself to be better. And then she's generous with the other gymnasts to help them to move forward. So I learned this at a young age because I literally was making myself sick and miserable competing with people. And it's stupid. I mean, and so even to this day, it's like, I don't really compete. I mean, there are all these amazing psychics out there, and trust me, I think all of them are wonderful and all of them have a gift, and I don't compete with them because each one is really unique and each one is configured in their own particular way, and they access information very differently than me. And so I support them all. I support all healers. We need all the healers. We need all the psychics. We need all these people out there. But it's amazing to me how many people have not learned this lesson around kindness in the midst of competition. And so they tend to still be competing when you're not actually competing. Like they need to fight you or fight against something. And I just find that really fascinating. I find that so interesting. So when I was a dancer, I had incredible, generous opportunities to do very difficult roles and to be pushed up the ladder. And I had amazingly successful dancers above me, pushing me to do that. And I'm eternally grateful for those people who opened their mouth and spoke up and said, you know what, I'd love Suzanne to do that role with me. And I'm so grateful for that. And, there's this generosity that can happen that's beautiful, because I always say ballet companies are like a giant dysfunctional family. And so within that giant dysfunctional family there's a lot of emotion in ballet companies. I mean, people are striving to be their very best and driving themselves forward and driving themselves crazy and being neurotic and being hyper emotional. And, you can't be an artist and not be very emotional. You just can't do it. So navigating all those complex emotions and then somehow, using that intensity to be better is a transition, to take a stressor and to transition into making you a better person and a better dancer is a hard transition. And the best dancers have learned that. The most successful dancers have actually learned that. So, when I was in the Berlin Ballet, I had an opportunity, and the dancers all gave me one beautiful flower. So I ended up with this gigantic bouquet of flowers. And it touched me so deeply because I knew that me getting that particular role had stressed out the dancers that usually got that role. And they were not happy with me, and they were pretty pissed off at me. And, one of them physically, bodily threw me out of a studio. So it was a nice gesture when they all did this and signed a card and everything. And so, there's that place that in ballet companies that dancers want the show to be the best that it can be. They want everyone to be the best that they can be, and they recognize when somebody's been given an opportunity and how scary that can be. And in that moment, that kindness overrode the competition. And it touched me deeply. So that when I was in Ballet West and the same thing happened to another dancer, that she got this incredible opportunity, and I was really, really happy that she got this opportunity. I mean, she was perfect for it. She was amazing. But I was not in that ballet for a multitude of reasons, but I was also doing other ballets that night. But I was not in that ballet. And I didn't realize until later that there was a lot of stuff going on as to why I wasn't in that ballet, because I'm a little bit of a Pollyanna. I'm a little bit of like, oh, I'm so happy for everybody, and I'm this very generous-hearted person, and so I want everybody to have that opportunity. So I don't always notice the daggers that are pointed at my back completely. And so there were daggers pointed at my back, but I was kind of oblivious, which has probably saved me multiple times, because I think when you're kind and open and innocent and people are standing there with a dagger that you don't recognize it, they don't know what to do. I mean, I think it throws them off balance. So in this particular moment, I wanted to do for her what had been done to me, which was to do the flower thing. And so I got all the dancers to buy a flower, and she walked in and had this beautiful bouquet and came out, and everybody was applauding, and she was very touched. And she was very touched until somebody said, oh, Suzanne, had put this together. And her face dropped. And she went, what? And, in that moment, I saw the competition. And it was weird to me because she was a short dancer. I was a tall dancer. We don't even do the same roles. I mean, she's a super bouncy, jumpy girl, and I am like the long, lanky, elegant kind of girl. So, we don't even have the same roles. And so you can't compete. I can't compete with that. She's a short, jumpy girl, So I have no competition, but you could tell she still had that competition running. And it was really interesting. And I said, yeah, this somebody did this for me, and I wanted to do it for you. And it took her 2 weeks to come up and say to me, I suppose you did that with the best of intentions. And I was like, you suppose I did that with the best of intentions? Like it took her 2 weeks of thinking about it, that, she was trying to figure out if I had an agenda or if I had an angle or what I was doing, or, and I had no agenda except to be kind. And so I bring that up because when you are genuinely, sincerely kind with no agenda, people are suspicious. I mean, they're suspicious. And then if they think that, they think two things. They either think that, you have an agenda, this underlying agenda, and they're trying to figure out the agenda, or they suddenly think that you want to be their best friend or something. And that has gotten me in trouble too, because I'm just being kind. I mean, I'm actually genuinely being kind. But if somebody has had a really hard life and they don't recognize that somebody is just sincerely being kind with no attachment whatsoever and no agenda, they can try and hook you. They can try and go into attachment. Again, attachment is the root of all suffering. And so they go into suffering because then I'm not attached. I'm just being kind, right? So, at this point in time, it's like I look at the cat thing in my numerology that I was talking about, and I have no agenda with the cat, and the cat senses that. But at first, the cat's like, you want to pet me, or you want to grab me, or you want to this, or you want to that. And, it's amazing to watch the mindset of kindness. Like, where's the agenda? What's going on? You're going to try and catch me. I mean, you could tell this cat had obviously been caught because it had a clipped ear. So it had been fixed, and so it had clearly had some challenges with people grabbing it or catching it. And so this cat clearly had never forgotten that. And so, but I had no agenda. I mean, my agenda was to be kind. It had actually taken me a couple of years. I thought the cat belonged to somebody else because I would see the cat kind of head off this direction, and there's a house over there, and I thought, well, maybe it belongs to them. But then those people left, and the house was empty, and the cat was still there, and I was like, well, maybe that's a stray cat, right? And in this dance of things, it's like I have no agenda with the cat, and yet I choose to be kind. And it costs me money. I feed the cat every single day, and it costs me money. But I think that that's what being kind is about: is that you do something because it's the right thing to do, and you don't have an agenda. So take a moment today to notice if you're doing something and what your motivation or what your intention is for that. Are you doing it because you are just being kind, or are you doing it because you want something back in return? And, especially right now in the world, don't want something in return at all. I mean, do it because you want to do it. Do it because it's kind. Do it because you don't expect anything. But don't have an underlying agenda, because people are super hypersensitive at this point. And, they're like, and even when I've been just like 100% genuinely kind, people will still come at me like, oh, you want something from me. And I'm like, no, actually I don't. I notice suffering, and I notice someone is hurting, and I want to help. and that's what I want everybody to do, to just do it because you sense that somebody needs a little help, and just to be kind, just to be kind from that standpoint. So, okay, that's it for today. Thanks, everybody. Bye.